You've heard, of course, about what's going on in Libya, and it's a mess. And it's becoming more and more of a mess because what's happening is Germany is backing out of the NATO alliance. Russia is saying it's a crusade. We are having our own fight with Britain, of all things, because of the suggestion that Gaddafi could be assassinated, made by Great Britain, and we're saying, no, not really. Frankly, if we don't want him to be killed, what are we doing there? Can I just ask that question out loud? Isn't the whole point of this exercise to get him away from power? He's not going to leave quietly. So far, we haven't been able to get him to run to a hole the way Saddam Hussein ran into a hole. So the likelihood of us finding him in a hole is remote. And he's going to fight to his dying breath. So far, he still has an army supporting him. Really, he's not losing yet. And so don't we want to kill him? Isn't that the whole point? Do you really think he's going to go quietly with his hands up? Anyway. But once again, our Secretary of Defense is taking the quiet approach and saying, no, we don't really want to kill him. If we don't really want to kill him, what are we bombing him for? The French are proposing a new political committee to oversee operations. Committees always do very, very well when it comes to military. Please. And the Italians are accusing the French of backing NATO in exchange for oil contracts. So they're once again, what did I tell you? Oil and refugees. Meantime, the no-fly zone is being called into question after the first wave of strikes is neutralizing, quote-unquote, the Libyan military machine. The UK ministers are saying the war could last 30 years. This is all being reported by the Daily Mail in the UK. And Italy is threatening to take back control of the bases used by allies unless NATO leadership is put in charge of the mission. Would you say this thing is falling apart even before it gets off the ground? I mean, it's unbelievable, but you could have predicted this. In fact, didn't we predict this just a couple of days ago? Maybe I was just talking to myself and I was assuming you were agreeing with me because you didn't call to disagree. Okay. In the meantime, let me tell you what else is happening in the Middle East, lest you not pay attention. Syria, today 15 people died and a lot more were injured as Syria is facing its own demonstrations from within against the ruling power of Assad. Jerusalem Post reporting first bombing of a bus in Jerusalem in many years, I think over 4 years. This is the first explosion of a bus. One woman killed, many injured, many being sent to hospitals. This is a very bad thing, obviously, for the destabilization within Israel. In the meantime, on the Gaza front, the words are, quote unquote, that it is evident another war is brewing on the Gaza front, okay? And by the way, can I just remind you of a little history? When Israel occupied Gaza, the world carried on that Israel had to let Gaza become an independent, quote unquote, nation state of sorts and get out of there. Well, when they went out of there, since they've been out of there, has Gaza done one thing to help its own people? Has Hamas done one thing to take the money that has been donated to it by all these other international agencies and build schools and get people away from the idea that their destiny is not their own? Their destiny is their own. Israel is out of there. If they wanted to, they could invest in science. They could try and lift themselves out of poverty. The whole Arab world is giving them money. Why don't they do that? Because they'd rather hate. They'd rather fight. They'd rather hate. They'd rather blame other people for their trouble. They can't even get along with their own Fatah movement of Palestinians on the West Bank. Please. Anyway, this is what's happening. In the meantime, the Yemeni president is vowing to stay in power to 2012. He's saying that he won't leave. The Egyptian stock market opened this morning for the first time in 6 months. When I saw it, the opening bell had cratered down. I'm not sure what it is right now. There's a lot going on in the Middle East. And in the meantime, Saudi Arabia is still assisting Bahrain, and we're keeping mum about that. How do the Americans emerge as a winner? If Gaddafi is assassinated, do the Americans emerge as a winner? I don't even know the answer to that. I mean, maybe we emerge as a winner in some respects, but a lot of the Arab world is so suspicious of our colonial interests in oil and of our involvement in the Muslim world to begin with, that revisionist history being what it is, it could look like we assassinated an Arab leader and we had no business doing so. So I don't know if that makes us emerge as a winner. I'm curious to know what makes us emerge as a winner. Here's the ultimate irony. What if we end up, because we're fighting on the side of the rebels win, they take power, they're supported by Al-Qaeda, as I reported to you today. And Glenn Sulmazy reminded me, actually informed me, not reminded me, that in Benghazi, apparently that's a nice little nesting ground for Al-Qaeda, people to be co-opted into their movement, which is probably why Al-Qaeda is so happy that the rebels are being supported. So let's say the rebels win. and they owe their allegiance and their fealty to Islamicism. So now we've put people at the head who will say, thank you very much. What have you done for me lately? Goodbye, America. I just as soon side with other people. I don't really need to side with you. Maybe I'll go back to Russia and China and sell them oil. Skip the United States of America. The truth is we don't know not only how it's going to end, we don't even know who our friends are. We don't even know what it looks like to win. Like, I thought we knew what it looked like to win in Iraq. It doesn't look the way it looks, but we had a vision that winning would mean that Saddam Hussein was found in a hole, which eventually he was, and he was hanged, which eventually he was, and that eventually there would be something resembling a democratic regime in Iraq that would somehow model and remind the rest of the Arab world that the Arabs could govern themselves in a way that was a little bit reminiscent of Western democracies and give women some rights and give minorities some rights and give religious freedom a go. Well, it turns out it doesn't look like that at all. But that was the vision of what we thought it looked like, right, when we went in. And we have a vision of Afghanistan as being a place that's routed of the Taliban. Well, that's not going to happen because we're actually reconciling with the Taliban. And we had a vision of Afghanistan as a place that the Taliban's feelings about women being lower than dirt would not be recognized. But that doesn't look like that's happening. But we sort of had an idea of what we were supposed to be accomplishing. Can you tell me, and I mean this seriously, can you articulate to me what it looks like right now that would even look like a win in Libya? Does it look like Gaddafi is there or he's not there? If he's not there, who's there? Someone that is sympathetic to our interests? Obviously not necessarily. Somebody that is simply sympathetic to having a better Libya? Well, maybe, but then how does it look like we win if the next administration of Libya is an avowed friend of Al-Qaeda? What does that look like to us? I don't even understand the vision thing, much less the mission thing of how we get there. And I think that's a very fair question to be asking of our leaders, congressional and executive. Because maybe the congressional leaders need to put a little bit of pressure on Obama and say, I think you better come home and address the uncertainty and insecurity that you've caused in America, where we're spending billions of dollars a week on a conflict for which there is no resolution that the people can even imagine that will be beneficial to the United States.